Super Mario Bros. Wonder is the best 2D Mario game ever made. It is bursting with creativity, it is bursting with charm. Every level is completely unique and different. The mechanics are top notch, the visuals are fantastic, the remixes of classic Mario soundtracks are phenomenal. The boss fights are the best they've ever been. The new power ups are compelling. The game is just wonderful. See what I did there? I haven't quite finished the game yet. I'm on like World 5 or something, but I streamed a good chunk of it, and I do have a very, very strong feeling towards this. That this is, in fact, one of the best platformers ever made. I would put it up there with Donkey Kong Country Tropical Freeze, right? It really is that good, right? And it is geared towards younger players in the sense where it does feel like it's aimed at like less experienced players, people who haven't played a ton of Mario games. It's not meant for super hardcore players, right? I'm kind of breezing through the game. It's not that challenging, and there's like this feeling that maybe I could someone like me will breeze through it in a couple of hours, right? In a couple of days, a weekend. But like I'm having so much fun, right? Like a lot of people came out and said that like Pikmin 4 is one of the best games this year, right? Like this is so much better than that, right? Like I would much rather have like 10 or 15 hours of something of this quality, this creativity, this much fun than the boring, dreary, like dragged out Pikmin 4, right? Super Mario Bros. Wonder is just phenomenal. The best game released today, you could say. Like, it is just that good. So much better than I think anyone really expected it to be. We saw a lot of people, going into this trying to say the game was going to be a failure, that it was just a rehash, that nobody cares about 2D Mario anymore, that this game wasn't a major release. I can give you names and like specific videos where specific YouTubers and online personalities, uh, like released these kind of statements saying this game didn't matter and then it was going to bomb, but it it has far surpassed my expectations, and I hope that more people start seriously considering this a game of the year contender, because this is better than Baldur's Gate 3. It is better than Starfield. It is better than Hi-Fi Rush. It is better than Forspoken. It is better than Hogwarts Legacy. It is better than Diablo 4, Street Fighter 6, Mortal Kombat 1. Like it is absolutely one of the best games released this year. If it wasn't for Tears of the Kingdom, I wouldn't hesitate to say that it was the best, right? This is a phenomenal 2D Mario game, right? This is a game that really emphasizes that the classic video game genre, the 2D side scroller, isn't going anywhere. So many people, because Nintendo dominates this specific niche, so many people want to pretend this genre isn't relevant anymore. But we're at the point now where a game like this can outperform a major AAA game featuring a iconic superhero, Spider-Man, right? We are at that point. And unlike the mid 2000s, in which everyone tried to like ignore the success of New Super Mario Bros. And tried to say it was play out and trite and like simplistic, and like its 30 million plus sales didn't mean anything. Like we are seeing with this release that like in this packed holiday season, that this is the big must-have game this October and will be for the rest of the year. This is one of the biggest releases of the year. Like I'm done saying if this game is like going to be our major release. Like there is no bigger release than Mario Wonder this year, right? It really is that good, right? And I cannot give this game enough praise. I can't hype it up enough. I can't tell you how much I enjoyed this game, right? I cannot even like begin to tell you how amazing it is. And I I can't begin to emphasize how upset I am at the sheer amount of people who tried to come out and tried to ruin this game, who tried desperately to create some kind of narrative, to set some kind of standard, to like try and pretend that like, oh, it's never going to surpass the iconic originals. Guess what? It did. This is better than Super Mario Bros. 3. It is better than World. It is better than New Super Mario Bros. It is better than Super Mario Galaxy, Odyssey, 3D World, right? Like I I imagine that this is my favorite Mario game ever, like my favorite 2D Mario game ever, at least my favorite mainline one, right? Like I can't think of any other like Mario platformer, 2D or 3D, that I enjoy playing as much as this, right? It really is on that level. And I do think we really need to acknowledge that Nintendo is in a position now where they are producing games that are better than the iconic classics, right? I've said this with like Tropical Freeze, I've said this with Breath of the Wild, I've said this with like a number of IPs over the years, but like Mario is an interesting example because so many people thought the IP peaked in the 80s and has been like stuck in that mindset for the past 40 years that they've completely neglected to understand like how the IP has grown, right? They don't play Mario Party, they don't play Mario Kart, they don't play 3D Mario. Like I know people who won't even play Super Mario World, right? Because that's not one of the good ones, right? Like it's not enough of a challenge for me, right? Like I only play the NES games. Like and Nintendo was only good in the NES era, right? It's a mindset that I think is dying, and I really hope that Super Mario Bros. Wonder kind of ushers in this era where these people are like actively mocked and derided for like the old like geriatric boomers they are, right? Like I am so tired of seeing these guys like come out like every major release trying to say like, oh, this Pokemon game, it's not as good as the old ones, right? This Mario game, it's not as good as the old ones. This Zelda game is not like the old ones. Like we know, right? We don't care that it's different. We don't care how it was in your day, right? Like we like the games for what they are and we appreciate them for what they do for us, right? Like it is a sad person indeed who spends his time just actively harassing people for simply enjoying a new video game from Nintendo. All right. Someone who releases statements about how these games just don't live up to the hype and how they're, all these ridiculous claims that Mario Wonder won't be remembered 5 years from now, or that it's not gonna sell a lot, or that like people aren't gonna put it on like the best ever releases on Switch lists, right? Like all of which I think is safe to say after having played it are is not going to be true, right? Like I'm embarrassed by like the audacity of like the online gaming community because this is a game that really should have gotten a lot more enthusiasm and hype. And I think this also extends to like New Super Mario Bros. In 2006, I had this experience as well. Like this isn't a new thing. I remember, waiting, getting buying this game when it came out. Having like girls come up to me on the playground and like playing together and like having a good time only to see these guys like try to tell us that like, ooh, the PSP, it's far better. Look at these realistic graphics. Look at these racing games. Look at these sports. Like, don't you like sports? Like, that's all they had, right? Like they didn't have actual fun with their platform. All they could do was just repeat buzzwords at you over and over again. And I'm sure like the PS1 era and like the Sega Genesis era were the same things. People have told you these stories of people screaming in your face about blast processing when you're talking about like how much you like Super Mario World, right? Like you hear people talk about these stories, right? And it's getting to the point now where I don't expect it to continue to thrive, right? Right? Like it's crazy to think how much these narratives have fallen apart over the years. We're told some completely new company is going to destroy Nintendo, whether it's Sega, whether it's PlayStation, whether it's Apple, whether it's like Valve, like you always have this like you're always told that these companies are producing like better games, right? That they're producing better hardware, that they have better technology, better visuals. And I have to ask you, like, where are they, right? Like, what has Valve produced in the past 20 years that's as innovative, charming, or fun as Super Mario Bros. Wonder? Half-Life Alyx couldn't cut it. I still have not played that game. I will never play that game. I don't care. Like any Xbox exclusives like Halo Infinite, PlayStation ones, God of War, right? Like I'm at the point now where I do not care about these established franchises. You know, like it's interesting thinking back, my childhood, I was a much bigger Spider-Man fan than I was a Mario one, right? Didn't grow up with Mario, only owned Yoshi's Island, never owned like a serious Mario product. I had to play Super Mario 64 at a friend's house. I, bought Super Mario World off of eBay, like I eventually got into it like years after the fact. It was like, so it was shocking how late I got onto the Mario train. Grew up playing DKC, Super Metroid, Super Mario World 2, Yoshi's Island, which is not a real Mario game. I grew up with all this like subsidiary like affiliated stuff, but never actually got to play the real thing. And it's so weird to think about because, I grew up with Star Fox 64. I grew up with like other games. I did not necessarily grow up with Mario, and yet I'm sitting here telling you that this game is one of the best in the genre and one of the best games released this year because this isn't just nostalgia. This isn't me being a fanboy. This isn't me like making things up or being disingenuous. No, like I really think this is one of the best games that's released this year, right? If Tears of the Kingdom wasn't such like a monumental like hurdle to overcome, like I would have absolutely no qualms about like putting this up there as like the best game released this year, right? It really is that good, right? As it stands, it's probably a strong second bet, unless like unless like WarioWare Get It and Move It like somehow blows me away, or Dragon Quest Monsters 3, which I don't think is gonna happen, but like we need to like acknowledge the quality of Nintendo software and development teams, right? Like they needed to revitalize 2D Mario. They really needed to come up with something fresh, new, and exciting, and they delivered in spades. Mario Wonder is phenomenal, and I hope that a lot of people enjoy this title on their Nintendo Switch this holiday season.